Welcome back. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Indeed, today is International Women's Day, and it's celebrated March 8 every single year. The theme for this year is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And of course, the hashtag going around the world is breaking the bias, looking at bridging the gap between men and women and ending inequality as far as the world is concerned. And talking about gender equality and sustainability, the United Nations, we're told, is using this also as an opportunity to call for climate action as far as women is concerned. And you look at also sustainable development. And sustainability is something that the United Nations has been preaching for quite a while now. It's a very important day because it's celebrated all over the world. On this day, we have activities organized in the spirit of women empowerment and gender equality, also to celebrate women who are recognized and celebrated for their achievements and their contributions to leadership and society as a whole. We have one of those women right here who is worth celebrating. She is a hotelier and a lawyer. The Chief Executive Officer of Lumsey Suits, Uloma Okoro, is our guest on Plus TV Africa, The Breakfast this morning. Uloma, nice to have you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Fantastic, fantastic. Today is International Women's Day. What does such a day mean to you? You're an entrepreneur, and we're looking at entrepreneurship and the role of women in entrepreneurship. What does it mean to you?
So for me, it's a day to celebrate the girl child, because I will say that in Africa, we have come a long way from where we used to be back in the day, but a whole lot still has to be done. So for me, it's a very good day to celebrate the girl child, the woman generally, and our role in the society.
Fantastic. When it comes to women in the entrepreneurship space, you know, entrepreneurship is something that drives the world today because of what we see: technology, e-commerce, globalization. How or what do women go through in that space?
So I will say that from my experience, I will divide women basically into two: the educated ones and the uneducated ones. The ones who are educated, people like me, I will say we have been fortunate, because by virtue of the education that I have, by virtue of the kind of exposure that I have, I've been able to stretch myself and get to the, I won't say I have gotten to my limits because my journey still continues, but I can dream. I can say things. I can dare to say I will want to be here and there because of the privilege of how I was born and the kind of education that I got. But then you have those ones that are not so educated or not so privileged. So because of that, the society makes them stay where ordinarily they shouldn't have been. So there are a lot of women who are dying with the dreams that they have. And those dreams will never be actualized because they haven't been given a chance to do so. And not because of their own fault, but because of the kind of expectations that they've been placed or they've been expected to reach based on their surrounding circumstances. I'm talking about all those who are less educated, less privileged, less financially independent, you know. So for me, that makes a whole lot of difference.
Okay, so but let's talk about what it means to be an entrepreneur in Nigeria, and share your experience with the challenges. I mean, the challenges that entrepreneurs actually face in Nigeria. Is it just limited to? Are there specialties? Are there challenges? With the women folk?
So I will say, like I said, because in my head I've been able to make that dichotomy between the maybe educated and not so educated. So for people like us, we will say we'll face the same challenges that the men face, because I will run my business the way that a man would, because of the privileges that I have. But I'm looking at how tough Nigeria has become, how in the last few weeks, especially for those of us who have been monitoring fuel prices, diesel prices, and things like that, and then you're seeing women who in their homes cannot contribute a dime to their well-being. So for those kind of entrepreneurs with very little assistance, the petty seller, along the road, the akara seller, the woman doing small POS business, for those ones, I will say they will go through hell, because if I can say I'm going through a whole lot, I'm trying to imagine how it will be for women like that, because most times they at that level, they don't receive as much support as the men would, because a lot of them will
How
be.
is that?
Yeah, a lot of them are restricted by the confines of marriage. Which that's still a very sensitive topic, especially for most people. But we still have a lot of people who believe that women do not deserve to have a source of livelihood, or do not deserve to earn anything. So I can imagine if you're a woman without support, you're basically saying, let me forge this entrepreneurship journey on my own without support, and then you're now faced with the challenges that we are faced with now. It will be easy for them to just collapse.
So the people who feel women shouldn't be out there, they
Yes.
should be hidden, and But would you say that in Nigeria today, the impact of women in entrepreneurship, be it no matter how small the business, is not fully appreciated? The role and the amount of business even women do is not fully appreciated.
I will say that because a whole lot of us are at the lower rung of the ladder. Most people prefer women to be doing the petty trading, the little business, small money here, small money there. But once we start to get up there, it becomes surprising. Even though there is now a whole lot of movement around the world to support women in entrepreneurship, the banks are doing it, a lot of foreign organizations are doing it. But how many people have the knowledge and the wherewithal to access this kind of funds? The way that people ordinarily would. And then, so that's why when you see women who are entrepreneurs, they start to raise their head, it becomes surprising, because these are people that are coming from, if a man had to jump 10 times, a woman probably has to jump 25 times to just prove that this is me doing my thing. It's not that some man I'm piggybacking on some man, or, somebody somewhere is bankrolling me, so...
So, but let's just talk about, the business environment. We already know that the argument has been put out that government should provide an enabling environment, and then private sector should thrive. And of course, as a woman, you don't exist in space. You exist in the same, environment where government exists. So has it been for you operating in this space where government is providing the environment? Has it been? I'd like you to share your experience with us firsthand.
Wow, there's some kind of languages I don't use. Otherwise, I will say it's been hell.
No, that's fine. It's okay to say
that's for me and my personal convictions.
Okay.
Because like I said, especially for those of us in hospitality, we are all feeling the bites. I mean,
how?
I started my business last year, basically, even though I've been very aggressive with my marketing and things like that. I just started May last year. By the time I started, diesel was about 240 per liter. And because my guest houses are located in Lekki, a lot of all those areas have better light supply, better power supply. So we were guaranteed at least 11 to 12 hours of power supply per day. So that was fine. I could plan. Now, as at yesterday, I bought diesel at 575 naira per liter. And power supply, if I get 3 hours, I jump up. So the quantity of diesel I used to use in a location for 1 month, I now use for 3 to 4 days.
Seriously terrible.
So apart from that particular challenge that you have mentioned now, what are the issues? I mean, security is also part of government providing enabling environment.
So what I
the taxes, and all of that.
So what I always tell people, when you're getting into business, don't go half, go the full route. So find out what are your compliance needs, what are your regulatory needs, who do you need to pay taxes to, what body do you need to belong to, That will help you ahead of time, so that government is not descending on you with penalties. When they're coming, if your books are already in place, you already know before time that this is what I'm supposed to file, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is what I'm supposed to do. That goes a long way. Now, in terms of security, it's a nationwide problem, and it's a function of the society that we now live in. So it's true that our sector has also been greatly affected, because people now go to hotels to commit all kinds of atrocities. So the advice I usually give people is make sure you have cameras in place and be very familiar with the police stations or police divisions around the place you do business. Very important. Okay. So that when you have the numbers of the respective law officers or your law enforcement officers on ground, it's easy for you to reach out to them when you have problems. It won't be nice for them to just get to know you on the day you have problems.
Interesting.
So.
You talked about, the bias in society. Of course, you're talking about breaking the bias as we celebrate the 2022 Women's Day. And the view by some people out there in this country that women shouldn't be out there. And women are often misunderstood. Someone sees a woman driving a brand new car. Oh, she must have slept with a man to get that. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Know that she worked hard to get it. You are in an industry, in the tourism and hospitality sector, that raises eyebrows. And I know you're not the only woman in that sector. You have other colleagues that probably will share those from time to time. And what are the challenges unique to that industry that women face? It's a stigma, it's a misunderstanding, misconceptions, and how do you deal with that? Maybe if there's some ladies listening who want to get into that business, they can learn from it.
So I think a whole lot goes into the way you comport yourself when you go into such businesses, because it's one thing that you're a woman and then you're in hospitality and putting yourself out there. So there's an impression thing to deal with, because people don't know your purpose. Whether you set it up to do some kind of illicit activities with women, who knows? Or whether you're fronting for some
people
man
will jump
somewhere.
to that immediately.
People immediately, easily jump to that. So it depends on the way you run your business and the way you also comport yourself, because that goes a long way. Because when your customers see you, they should see somebody who means serious business, not somebody who's just there because this is a business to do. So it goes a long way in taking care of the stigma and the impressions that people have.
So, but let's take a quick look at the theme for this year's celebration. It talks about gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Would you say that there's a gender bias?
Yes.
In the business sector? You're an entrepreneur. Is there a gender bias? Is it that government the CBN would say we're giving funds to the men and don't give to the women? Are there issues like that?
No. The gender bias, in fairness, is that a lot of people are trying to look at women holistically, but then you still have those biases that are entrenched in the society that are very hard to dispense with. As recently as yesterday, there was a story making the rounds. A lady dropped her 3-month-old in a crèche, and unfortunately, the baby died. God rests the baby's soul. But nobody, at that time, nobody had an explanation for why the baby died. But everybody descended on the woman. Why would you drop a 3-month-old in a crèche? Why any woman? In fact, people were saying she should be prosecuted and jailed for negligence. And you're not thinking, what if this woman is a breadwinner in her family? What if she has to go to work because she's providing for everybody else? Why did he have to be? Nobody even mentioned of the father. Nobody said where was the father or anything. Everybody blamed it on the woman, like the woman had no business leaving her baby, forgetting that she also had to have her own source of livelihood. So it's, even though the government holistically may be doing their bits, there's a whole lot to be done to our psyche.
Okay. So because I'm trying that we establish this fact that we don't have any gender disparity in terms of government policies as regards entrepreneurs. So you have a set of persons who are treated as gentlemen, and the others treated like second-class citizens and what have you. But you have also stated categorically here that it has nothing to do with government policies. So you're saying that the Nigerian government policy is not biased. That's what you're saying.
I will say it's not biased.
But you just have a psyche and a cultural problem.
Exactly, you're getting it.
The government is trying to combat in a way.
Exactly. So it's a cultural bias. It's more in our psyche than, because it's human beings that write. Even though yes, I know that there has been some clamor in the past in the north about age of marriage and things like that, and that has done its own, and the conversations are still ongoing. But in terms of policies for women entrepreneurs, I will say that society is waking up. The only thing is, it now takes a lot to be able to harness those opportunities. For instance, when banks do these things, they will expect you to have a business plan and all that, and not many women are savvy enough or are educated enough to be able to do all these things for themselves. So it's an ongoing thing.
It's not automatic because you're a woman. It should be given to you. You have to also have a business plan.
Exactly.
Have the knowledge. But how? Let's talk about the difficulty. You're in the private sector. You run your own business.
Yes.
There are some other women who are also successful in the private sector but work in corporations and companies. And we keep hearing about the glass ceiling being shattered. This glass ceiling basically, for those who listen, means women not being able to ascend to the boardrooms, to the highest or higher positions in companies. Do you think it's because of the view that women may not be stable enough, to handle the leading positions? Because we could talk about politics as well. Some people have this view. And what have you noticed in that space of the boardroom? Let's start with that.
So in the corporate sector, incidentally, you're talking to an expert because I worked for 16 years. I'm a lawyer by training. So I worked a lot with corporate organizations. I headed legal organizations or legal departments of, some quoted companies before I only resigned last year to face my business. So there's this, because of the impression that a lot of people have in the workplace about women. If the men were supposed to walk to jump 12 feet, you will jump 16 feet
to get to
and show that you're jumping that way. Wow. I have had to go to work when I was in labor before. I talk about it. When I had my second baby, the only thing is that because I had some experience, I knew the risk I was taking. I knew that I was almost dilating about 6 centimeters. I knew that would take me like 6 or 7 hours before I would give birth. And I said, you know what? Because at that time, I had just been made acting head of department. I was made acting head of department when I was 7 months pregnant. So I had to prove myself to show that I could do the job, even though I was heavy and I was going to give birth. So this is me. Instead of relaxing and being in the labor room and waiting for the baby, I just got in my car with the driver. I said, you know what, let me go and pack my things in the office, put in my maternity leave, be able to copy my folder so that I can work from home. And that pregnancy, throughout, when I gave birth, trust me, I was working from home.
Wow. So what policy shifts and changes need to be put in place? Is it just a perception, mindset, and culture thing, or can policy, changes or new policies help?
Policies were written by human beings and will be implemented by human beings. Okay. So you can write the most beautiful thing on paper and say this should be this, this should be this. But in reality, I know about women who get laid off during their maternity leave. And it will not be written because you've been on maternity leave, we're laying you off. They will just find a reason. But the reason being, you've not been at this job for like 2 months and we can't keep waiting. They'll just get a replacement and then tell you anything. So you now have that, you have to keep proving yourself every step of the way. Like what I did, nobody told me to do it. But I knew that it was one of the things I had to do to show that I was equal to the task. But come to think of it, that was risky.
Risky, very risky, very risky.
So it just brings us to the fact. I mean, COFI, and I also hope, Uloma, you've been following the story. You remember that recently there was a bill seeking that create additional 111 seats, especially for women, at the center of lawmaking and what have you. And the reason that was rejected was because it was rejected. And some people say, oh, that it's been rejected. But it seemed to be aligning with some of the thoughts that I have, that it's more of a cultural thing. So you can have, why do we have to create an additional seat? Because naturally, people have not come to accept the fact that you have to allow women jostle with the 439 seats or what have you. And so we have to create like a special seat because they cannot be allowed to come into that space. So I definitely understand that we have to address this issue of gender bias, via culture, breaking all of those cultural beliefs and what have you, and all of the sentiments that we hold. But moving forward, on a day like this, how do you think that, women can break even? What can women do, especially in your field where you're an entrepreneur? And mostly a lot of people are tilting towards that direction.
Yeah, I will say for women, nobody is going to hand you anything on a platter. So seize the opportunities that you see. Be very serious with your schooling, with your education, because for me, knowledge and education is everything. If the guys are reading 8 hours, do 12 hours, you will find the need for that in future, because that will be the weapon that you will have when you're faced with all the biases that you see. That will determine whether you will be financially independent or whether you will be dependent on someone. I know that not everybody has this privilege of, a lot of people, due to circumstances beyond their control, family background and things, it's not very easy to find a woman who will be educated to the fullest. But it's something that, for those who have the opportunity, please use it and use it well. Because for me, that will be your defense when...
But you also want to agree. I mean, just as we talked about the fact that there are some people in, the northern part of Nigeria. For instance, as a woman, you want to get into the business of leisure, your kind of business, and where you would have, selling beverages, alcohol beverages, and what have you. And we already understand, the position, of the culture and the law surrounding that practice. As a matter of fact, we hear that bottles of beers are being destroyed constantly. So how can women thrive in this, in this environment?
Unfortunately, I don't have any answers to that. I don't.
Yeah.
Do you have an answer?
Yeah, but I also, before we go, because we're out of time, do you think, because I've discovered this in some, fora, that some of the ladies even don't feel they are good enough, or they should be in front, Mercy.
Isn't the enough?
Breaking the glass ceiling.
No, everywhere.
Okay.
In church, is that true?
It's a cultural thing, yes.
So what do you say to the ladies? That
Yes, because I've had people that, all those days when I was in school, and people like, you're too intense. Oh. If you keep on like this, how are you going to get married? When everything is book. But incidentally, I got married. And I got married to a fellow lawyer. But we had a whole lot of us, even while we were in school, that they kept telling us, make sure you get married before you go to law school, because if you come out outside law school, no man is going to marry you.
You buy a car, you're successful. Some will not even buy cars.
In fact, when I wanted to buy my own car, that was a debate in my family, because I was still single at the time.
You don't joke.
Don't buy a car.
That's
not marry you.
Are you kidding now?
No, I'm not. It was a debate.
Are you listening?
Buy that car. Incidentally, then I was still dating my husband. So what I had to do was I had to
make an excuse.
No, I had to bring him to help me make a choice.
Make a choice with the car, but it was you who was getting the car.
Yeah.
Not that he had to convince them that he was getting the car for you.
No. He just helped me make a choice. Because of the kind of person.
So ladies out there should also not be afraid to be successful.
Exactly.
All right. And the guys out there should not be afraid to approach women who are successful.
Yeah, they always feel that once a woman is successful, you become rude and nasty and bitchy. But
that's not the word.
Sorry,
that's not a TV-friendly word.
Sorry for my language.
That's okay.
But a well-trained woman is a well-trained woman. It doesn't matter whether she has money or not.
And a poorly-trained one, no matter...
A poorly-trained one, no matter how rich or poor she is, will remain so. So it has nothing to do with money.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Uloma Okoro is a lawyer and a hotelier. She's the CEO of Lumsi Suites. We'll check you out online in Lekki. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll come and box for some coffee.
Please go ahead. That would be nice.
All right, we have some more as we're still celebrating International Women's Day right here on The Breakfast.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.